and welcome to another episode of Modern Mom, where we talk about being a mom in the 21st century. My name is Remy Kay. I am a comedian and a certified life coach. I have with me today Kathy Guest. Hello, Kathy.
Hey, Remy.
Kathy is a speaker and a comedian as well as a writer, and I've invited her today to talk a little bit about bringing comedy into corporate.
Sometimes corporate's it's like trying to revive a dead body. When HR puts its stamp on everything, it can get a little tricky. We get scared about things that we don't need to get scared about.
Well, so talk about your background a little bit, because you were, as you said, in corporate for a few years, and one of the very few women in the leadership suite.
Yeah, that was fun. I was in corporate for, the better part of 2 decades in tech. I was doing comedy, I was doing stand-up as well as improv, and the hard part is it's really hard to be yourself in corporate, for anybody, really, to sort of bring, we always talk about bring your full self to work, like it's really easy. And then, I brought my full self to work, and they're like, could you bring less of your full self to work? It was always a delicate balance. And so when I hear women in tech go, I'm thriving, I'm like, you're probably not. I think really self-esteem and respect, you can respect people, and if you respect other people, why not respect yourself enough to be who you are? And I think it's an age, it's an experience thing. It's also just making peace with who you are. And I think it's sort of everybody's journey is a little different. And I think, when you get there, it's really great. Because the same thing that makes me go, you know what? She's cool. I really love Remy. She's funny, and she's smart, and she's savvy. That loud and proud recognizes other loud and proud, and if I have that right to do it, I'm going to celebrate that in other people.
Because I think there is this delicate process of interweaving your authentic self with what is appropriate in corporate.
If it were up to me, I would just be like, let's encourage honest language, not mean language,
sure,
but honest language. Why are we doing this? Maybe we should make this an email. I think we don't encourage honesty, and I think if we did, I think people would be freer. So I think there is that balance. And I think we can bring comedy to it. I think it's really about understanding comedy that lifts people up.
So talk to me about stand-up comedy, and how long have you been in it? It's been such an honor to be in comedy with you and doing shows with you.
Oh, thank you. I enjoy yours. I love people that own their voice and they're not afraid to be seen. I started to stand-up years ago, right out of college. Started in stand-up, went through and did sketch writing. About 5-6 years in doing, mics and shows. Somebody said, you would be really good at improv. And I went, that's interesting. I never thought about it. They were like, well, you seem to like people. I was like, most days. Because I really love the idea that you could let go and create with other people. And you could have so much fun. And you could be better than if you just did something on your own. And so I did that for many years. And fast forward, 25 years, I've been doing this for so long that it's second nature to me. And I think what's beautiful, I still have to write and test stuff. Doesn't mean that everything works. Doesn't mean that at all, folks. Once you know your voice and you make peace with, okay, here's my voice, you don't second guess yourself as much.
Right.
And it's more fun. The hardest years were the first, literally 7 or 8 years where you're finding your voice. You're also making peace with the fact that you look a certain way.
Right.
You can't say certain things.
So I did improv first, actually. I did improv many years ago. Brief introduction on improv. Improvisation, which people often confuse with comedy. Usually 2 people or more people are on a stage or in a group setting, and they're building off of each other.
Yes.
And the biggest thing that comes out of improvisation is, instead of no but, yes and. So if you or make an offer, they add a yes and to it, and then continue to build on that. Yeah. And so one improv game that I remember very clearly was The Tree. Do you remember that game? The Tree?
I'm a tree.
And so the first person starts with, I'm a tree, and then a second person might come and say, well, I'm a bird on the tree. And then, kind of adding on to that. So I just wanted to give a brief background on it.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a great explanation. And the fun part about improv, too, is that, you can play with other people, and there's no right, there's no wrong. Right. There's only playful choices. And so you don't have to try to crowbar being funny. Not like you being a stand-up comedian and you haven't figured out how to work with other people and bounce ideas off of them. But I think it's fun.
I think it helps with crowd work, too.
Yes. Yeah. It makes your stage delivery, your stage presence, your crowd work, your everything. Even if you lose your place, it happens to all of us, comedians, we're so in the moment. And then we have a set list, right, which is what we're going to do that night. but you might follow the crowd, and then all of a sudden you're like, now where was I? But it's great because the audience isn't going to know your set list. They only know that you veered off if you go, oh my God, where am I? So
Right.
it teaches you just be in that moment.
So in regards to, comedy and corporate, what an interesting combination.
Yes.
Do you ever feel, especially for women, it's a challenge to integrate the two?
Definitely, because I think everybody got the drink the Kool-Aid that we're not supposed to have fun at work and that you shouldn't do it at work, which is a bunch of garbage. But I think it's especially hard that bar for women because, when I was in tech right out of college and doing comedy at night, it was like, well, you're female. Don't laugh too much. Don't laugh too loud.
Right.
Look a certain way. Yet what studies show is that humor is one of those skills that really connects us, and we want our leaders and in our teams. We want it. Right. I think it's starting to change. And I say, ladies, don't hide that part of yourself because women are good at lifting people up.
Yes, I agree.
Like men, sorry guys, this is just the research. This is not Kathy Guest said. Yes, and I am quoting the research out there. So the research shows that like men are more likely, because it's societally accepted that men will make a joke at somebody's expense, and women are far more less likely. They're less likely to do that. They're more likely to make a joke at their own expense,
Right.
which maybe we should lighten up a little bit on self-deprecation. Yet
Agreed.
we are very, very good at reading a room and knowing, okay, we have to be sensitive here and we shouldn't put somebody down. So women already have that sensibility in relationships. So we're good at lifting people up. So ladies, don't leave that stuff at home. Bring that stuff to the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And forget what people say. I mean, you'll win people over. Will you win over anybody, everybody? No. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't like me, and I call them family. Yeah, caviar's not for everybody. I'm not for everybody. You're not for everybody. And guess what, everybody? You judging us, you're not for everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody is. So
That's true.
when you create, I think what I want people to think about, especially women, is what do you want people walking away with when they interact with you? And I don't know
love
about
that.
you, but I really want people to go, she made me laugh and feel better about my day.
And that's actually one of the reasons why I really admire you is that you are doing something that I initially kind of really foresaw when I came into comedy was combining improvisation with corporate and comedy with corporate and kind of even initiating team building where improv games are incorporated into team building. How do you feel about something like that?
I love it, and it is a little challenging, but it's changing. The good news is it's changing, and I love that idea. And I think teams are hungry for that. They're so hungry, and I have to talk with my hands, everybody, because this is like, well, I'm not Italian. I'm a hand talk. Like if Remy were, she wouldn't do this because she's lovely and she's too wonderful. But if when I was younger, my mom would be like, she took my hands and she went like this, and I just to mess with her, I was like, teams are hungry for connection. They're hungry for laughter. They want to have fun with each other. They want to build safety and trust. And I think what's so beautiful about your journey and mine too is that I think improv's a great place to start to use those games to set a better tone in companies and to help them feel safer and have more fun. 10 years ago, it was scary for people. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't perform. Well, you're not performing.
You're not performing.
You're not performing at all.
Yeah, you're playing games with each other.
Yes.
I love the improv. The first improv concept I ever learned was the I failed concept. So we all had to we were in a circle, and each one of us had to go in the center of the circle and yell, I failed, with just conviction, and everyone applauded.
Yeah.
And, something about that is so magical because when I was forced to do that, I did feel this barrier of embarrassment, and it really blocked me from being able to think in the moment, think on my feet, etc. And so when I did that and everyone applauded, I could feel the neuro patterns in my brain change. And I felt that it was okay to fail. I really sincerely felt that.
Yes. And what if, and to build on that, and what if we created like every week and celebrated our failures in our companies, and we took the stigma out of being wrong? It's really what Remy's talking about, is like the magic of acknowledging that you tried.
Right.
And you're rewarding the behavior of trying.
Right.
And I love that so much. That's something beautiful about improv that stand-up doesn't teach as much. We're not stand up. We're not as gracious about failing.
Yeah.
If you fail with a joke, you have 10 stand-ups waiting to go on that will tell you about it.
Right. It's true. That's
Whereas
true.
an improv, it was like, you took a chance with that character. High five. It's such a
that encouraging culture.
Nurture.
There's something to this.
Absolutely.
Bringing this to corporate. And the thing about improv is it removes that taboo of fear. It allows whoever it is that's in improv to open up, come out of the shell, be willing to take a chance. And I think that is the biggest lesson, especially for women, that we do not receive. Taking a chance is just the scariest.
We don't encourage each other, let alone women. We don't encourage women in corporate environments. And imagine if, we trained people and we rewired our thinking to like, Kathy tries something at the mic or in a presentation, it doesn't work, and everyone's like, woo!
Yes.
Now we know it doesn't work, but we can build on that.
We can build.
And I think that is such a positive way to reframe failure, because we're not, we're never going to get anybody to risk anything if they're scared.
Right.
And so I really think you're right.
Scared of losing their job, scared of being reprimanded, scared of not getting a chance in the future.
Right. And already as women especially, we're judged differently. We have to we have to work twice as hard to get half the pay. Yay.
Right. Yeah.
And that's already a burden. And now add the fear of failure. And I think we need to start remembering that if we want people to succeed, we've got to reward the try and change the way that we frame it. So I'm 100% with you. I think it would be magical. I think it's changing because people recognize that, improv is about being able to, in any moment when things change, that you can handle it.
You've done some speaking engagements for large companies and in some of these tech expos, etc. Tell me about some of your experiences around that.
Yeah, so I've spoken at a lot of different conferences, a lot of different big companies, big tech companies, and I think what's interesting is that I've noticed in the last 10 years, probably more so right around 2018, so in the last 6 years, people are so hungry for something different. There's so much openness now, and I think COVID, the pandemic really got people thinking about, what do I want for my life? And it's not more of the garbage. They want the good stuff. And I think what I'm hearing and seeing more and more is an openness to maybe there's something to that. People are willing to try, but that's because employees are speaking up. And no small measure to, millennials and Gen Zers who are vocal about change. And I love that. I love that they're demanding this isn't going to work anymore. We can't keep doing that. So I think things are changing. Some leaders there's still some old guard. Almost
like the tug of war is, we want you on site, we want to be at home, and so hybrid is kind of the happy medium, I suppose.
It's the clue. It's like, this is the MacGyver fix. Yeah.
Right. It is the MacGyver.
It is. It's like, how do we what's the compromise? Yeah. No, I think you're right. Well, it's interesting because I think the companies that are going back full time and demanding, their employees are leaving.
Are they?
Oh, yeah. Now, there are places that aren't being flexible, and they're you got to come in 5 days a week, and you got to, I think they're going to have a hard time keeping employees. And I think a lot of that is control. It's just, how do we control? Because they think they're under the illusion that 5 days a week translates to employee productivity.
Right.
And it doesn't.
I've been watching recruiters on Instagram and TikTok, and they talk about how it's not the person who does the job the best that gets promoted. It's the person who's liked the best. And in order to be liked, you have to kind of be in person, participate in cooler talk, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I think for women, and at least, certainly for me, I know some mothers I've spoken to are the same way. We kind of want to get our work done and then go home so that we can get more work done at home, right? Yeah. And so it's you talked about very early in this conversation, you talked about efficiency.
Yes.
And so one of the things I really liked about COVID is log on to a meeting, get to what needs to be done, and then kind of log off. There's not that kind of lingering talk. And I understand that sometimes ideas come out of those conversations.
Yeah.
But, in that case, I think that there's this opportunity for brainstorming conversations. We can schedule something for that too. And maybe You mentioned that, sometimes a meeting could be an email. Maybe that space could be actually made for brainstorming, with some improv type of principles within that. I think that, I like structure a lot. I think there's also our population, I think, is more diverse than anybody realizes. Not just ethnically diverse or gender diverse. We've got neurospicy folks in the office, right? We've got comedians. We've got people with all these personalities. And I think that diversity, deserves to be honored in the way of having a chance to speak up and have some input. And you're right, the corporate structure maybe doesn't allow for as much of that as, would be nice. And I think as a result of that, we're seeing a lot more people start their own businesses. And that might also kind of open up an opportunity to really disrupt our current corporate structure.
So well said. Women need to be in the office to participate. And the interesting thing is the research shows it's not that people are like, I don't want to be in meetings. So if the meeting was brainstorming, or if it was, how's everybody doing? Is everybody okay?
How is this project that you're working on? What's coming up for you? What are the obstacles that are coming up? How can we remove those obstacles?
How do we bust through those obstacles so you can do your job better?
Right.
I think what people really want is make meetings matter more.
And matter,
And if you do that, then people are on board. So that's really the issue here, is that, if you took some of those meetings away and you made them a chance to do more connection, have more fun and brainstorming, and just maybe some improv games on a Friday afternoon, just so people connected and had fun, people would not be opposed to it. So it's really about choosing to make that stuff while they're in the office be meaningful. And that's the burden of leadership. Leadership do better.
Right.
Do better by your people.
It's true, because I think the people probably have ideas. They do feel reluctant to share those ideas with leadership.
Exactly.
And I think that's the part where leadership can really kind of step in and be open to those ideas and be willing.
Oh my God, a woman can be attractive and smart and funny. Oh my God, what? It's crazy. You could have more than one woman.
Instead of the one token woman.
The one token woman.
Yes. And a lot more producers started having all women showcase on a regular basis, because they started to realize that, guess what? Women bring other people in.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, I've been on, it's funny, years ago, I have been on all women showcases. They have existed. I think it's just a lot of producers don't do it.
Nowadays it's coming up. People are starting to do it more often. I actually got invited to host a women's showcase at Bronham Lounge. Never seen that before.
What you're saying, because it's like corporate. It's like you can't have more than 2 women in a leadership space. And that's just it. We can have those voices, so when women start to see themselves in these spaces, but make it meaningful.
Right.
Yeah,
and also encouraging the women to be encouraging to each other as well.
Yes.
It shouldn't be a competition.
No. Anytime it's a competition, here 2 thoughts about that. In my experience, I think one, we're going to go here. Okay, here's the unfun part, guys. Here's the unfun part. There's this thing called the patriarchy. Yeah. It has women sort of fighting over whatever breadcrumbs they throw.
Right.
And then women somehow got this message that we have to compete with each other rather than work together. Rimi's great. She's fantastic. Book her. Her experience is different, and my experience is different, and I'm good at what I do. Yeah. And the thing is, every woman has their voice and their unique perspective, and there's room for all of it. Yeah.
When women share with each other candidly and openly, it actually increases longevity.
I love that.
And I feel so sorry when I see something like this, is women who embrace misogyny. In fact, I don't know if you saw the Barbie movie.
I did.
I was low-key obsessed with it when it came out.
I loved it.
But there's a line that she says, men hate women and women hate women.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
Yes.
And why is it that America Ferrera didn't get the Oscar for
right?
that? So that's a whole other thing. I'm a vent today on that. But no, it's so true. I think women in tech, we learned how to survive, but surviving is not thriving. So one of the ways that and you all know the women that do this, that I'm just one of the guys. I'm one of the guys. Names. They give up their own agency in hopes that maybe they'll be liked. And then they're never really accepted by the men. And they've betrayed, sadly, the women. And they haven't even realized they've done that to themselves. And that's the saddest part. Their fault, they're not at that threshold of awareness.
Right. I agree.
No judgment, but I think what they do is a disservice to themselves. It's a game that I don't think we can win playing the way a man does.
Right.
The only way we win is do what men do. What do men do? They network. They promote each other. They have each other's backs. They book each other. They climb the ladder. They bring each other up. And women have to model that same sense of like networks.
Women, I feel like there's an elephant in the room that we have not spoken about.
Let's talk about it.
And that's the LGBTQIA plus community.
Yes. I remember a time where I actually had friends that were in the closet. Now I'm a heterosexual woman, so heteronormative, and that gives me an advantage, right? Cisgender female, and I had friends years ago who just never were out about it. And what I do see is I do see more of my friends out and proud, which is wonderful because they're being supported. That means that the environment is changing a little bit more to where they feel safe, and that's great. I was in tech for, almost 2 decades, so I can tell you what my experience is. It's still very, tech bro dominated.
Right.
And that tech bro energy sometimes is not safe for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't fall in that category.
Not wearing a bro vest.
Right.
No offense to bros, but okay, a little offense to bros. But we love you too, bros. We want you to come to this side. We love you, and we're pulling for you. We want you to join our life raft so you don't have to, And I think in certain environments, it is hard if you don't fit that narrow, mold. It's very hard for people who are different to climb that ladder. And that's unfortunate because I still believe, and I know you do too, that talent and intelligence and potential comes in many different packages. And I'd love to get to the point where we are promoting people based on their abilities and not the package that they're in. And
I think also understanding that the change with package also comes with a change and a shift in the abilities themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, who's to say that our cookie cutter sense of what abilities and talent looks like is correct?
Yeah.
And that having input from these other communities isn't going to somehow open up our horizons.
Well, that's such a great point. It is such a beautiful point. I think if we had more women and women of color and LGBTQ folks in leadership, we would have more empathy. That marketing message is offensive or doesn't support people.
Right.
You can't do that without having people in the room. So I think there is something to your point about having tremendous empathy, and I think it would open up the aperture of talent and also just understanding. I think companies would be better. They would be better.
Yeah.
And
even the products themselves. I actually saw this video, this woman mechanical, she was like a woman mechanical engineer, and she talked about certain products that are supposed to be catered toward women were designed by men and therefore don't meet some of the needs of their target audience.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That was actually time where I was spending double on Venus, the women razor, and then come to realize that all of the materials, certainly the materials and the design process, were the same as what they use for men's razors. And so now I actually use men's products to avoid the pink tags.
Just as good. good. And actually, what else I learned? Someone told me moisturizer is mostly the same. Deodorant is mostly the same. All that stuff is the same, and yet women's products are
more expensive.
Okay,
so there are some industries that are more dominated by women, and those tend to pay lower. So things like industries like teaching, nursing, tend to be paid lower. And then now the disruptive industry is influencing.
Yes.
So influencing is actually female dominated. And they're saying that, this is kind of one of the higher paying female dominated industries. Yeah.
That makes total sense. And if you think about the purchasing power that women have as consumers, it's flipped.
Right.
Women actually make, and here's a fun fact I learned, the research shows that women make a lot of the technology purchasing decisions, or at least influence them in the home. They decide what computer, if the family's going to upgrade their computers.
Because we want to know what the computer is capable of, if it's able to meet our needs. So we will literally go in with a list of specifications of what we're looking for long before we ever walked into the store. And that's if we're not going online and buying it ourselves. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed our discussion and, just talking about these roles within corporate and comedy and all these different things.
But I love talking to you because it's so much fun. So
Yeah,
thank
I'd
you.
love to again. Thanks everybody for joining us on another episode of Modern Moms. See you next time.